ora e te iwi and welcome to the pod. This week, it's a UFC special where we preview UFC 253. We caught up with City Kickboxing coach Eugene Beerman, and later in the show, we speak with UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya. Before we get into, being in Las Vegas and then moving on to Abu Dhabi to Fight Island, we will backtrack a bit and talk about those unique preparations you had in New Zealand before you left, being in isolation with the crew for around 2 weeks, I think it was, and how you came about that decision to prepare for this fight card.
Yeah, I mean, that just came about obviously because, we had those guidelines imposed on us and we didn't want to be separated throughout that time. We wanted to maintain our usual kind of training regimen with all our training partners. So the easiest way to get around that, or not get around it, but, follow the guidelines was to basically all of us to move into the gym and basically create kind of like a family household, I guess, like a family bubble, living at the gym, which would, as per the guidelines, which would mean that we were able to train together and live together and still carry on our usual training regimen, which is what we wanted. So there was some sacrifices from the guys, but everybody came together and everybody cooperated. And like I've said in other interviews, there was a big silver lining to that, and that is that kind of broke the monotony of what we usually do and gave us kind of like a fresh perspective, a new kind of energy. So it was quite nice, pleasantly surprised.
It must be quite refreshing for you as well as a coach to, it's a new approach, it's a new way of learning and getting to know your fighters a little bit better. Is this something that you might perhaps do again for other fight cards?
Well, to be honest, I think the guys want me to at least entertain the idea. They don't mind. It's the practicality of it and the logistics of it are a little bit, those are the difficult things. But we decided to put that on the shelf just while we're dealing with these fights. But it's definitely something the guys want me to revisit to see if that sort of environment can be recreated for their other fights. I don't know if it will be exactly like that, but maybe we'll take aspects of it and plug them into what we're already doing. Okay,
so let's get down to this main event, UFC 253, and I feel like I say this to you every time I talk to you, but it really is true. Every time, you go back to UFC, it's history in the making, and it's this again, defending this title against Paulo Costa for Israel. What's the feel with him at the moment? How is he feeling and how has he come along through camp this time around? Has there been anything different that you've found about him?
Yeah, it has been a little different, to be honest. And obviously in regards to the COVID stuff and having to camp down in the gym, we've already talked about. But I think Israel's stepped up a little bit for this fight. He might portray the fight a certain way in the media, but I think I think in all seriousness, he knows this is a very dangerous opponent. It's an undefeated opponent. So previously, no one's previously been able to kind of crack the code on this guy. And those things kind of they present real danger for someone like Israel. And I think Israel has, in a positive way, use that to just give himself a little bit of an extra push. He's always obviously training hard, but I just feel like he's just throughout the whole duration of the camp, probably just lifted himself a little bit from what I usually see, which is like, firstly, that's hard to do because we're already training at such a high level, and secondly, it's hard to notice. So the fact that I'm sitting here and talking about it and it's been noticeable is a really good thing for me to observe.
There's been a lot of, talk, banter between himself and Paulo. And I was going to ask you, you know, about that respect factor. And it is something that Izzy never says before a fight, but after a fight, you can clearly see that, you know, there is the respect there for opponents. I mean, as a coach, you have to look at the whole thing, you know, from an outside perspective. What are those dangers, you know, for viewers, especially that may not know Paulo Costa? What does he bring to the floor that perhaps Izzy hasn't seen yet?
Just a little bit contrary to the statement you made, is that he doesn't bring anything that Israel haven't seen yet. That's the comforting thing for us, is that his style we've seen before, and that comes with having so many fights. You're talking about Israel having over 100 fights. The obvious thing that we haven't seen is we haven't seen this individual, and there's certain things that come with each individual that you will never be able to tell until you're in the fight. But the actual style is something that we've seen quite a few times, and it's a very aggressive style. It's a very explosive, athletic style. Very dangerous, but at the same time, it leaves you in very vulnerable positions. So it's a guy who likes to take a lot of risk to cause a lot of damage. But like I said, he takes a lot of risk. So it's something that we can capitalize on while at the same time having to be very cautious. So that's a lot of difficulty for us. Without going into specifics, because I don't want to go into specifics, I'm trying to draw a general picture for the audience. But yeah, a very aggressive, come forward style, and a very powerful man.
He speaks about that often, that his power is, you know, more superior than Israel's. How do you prepare Izzy for that impact, you know, when you've never faced it before? How do you kind of, I don't know, guesstimate what that power might feel like and condition Izzy for it? Or is it a case of not getting hit at all?
Yeah, well, firstly, you're right. It's a case of not getting hit at all. But also, that's what you just said is the nervous bit, is the scary bit for me as a coach, is that you have all these individuals that are so good at what they do, and they're so powerful and so explosive, and you can't really answer with any accuracy just how that's going to, how that's going to come forth in the fight, how it's going to work itself out. Whether Israel, if he does get hit with a clean shot, whether Israel's going to be able to take that shot, or whether Israel's going to be able to see it in time and roll with it. There's all those factors that we can watch as much video and do as much analysis as we can, but there's a certain chunk of it that we won't know until we're in there, until we see the first 30, 40 seconds. And that's that's the part that kind of motivates us and pushes us to do so, pushes us to do so much. But it's also the part that makes us a little bit nervous, because you never really truly know about another athlete until you're in there and you're in the mix, you're in the moment.
Is that when it's more about, that mentality of worrying? I mean, of course you worry about what's coming at you, but trusting the process and what you bring to the table?
100%, because those are all things that Israel and myself would have no control over. We don't have any control over how powerful he is or what he does in respect to certain things. We just have to be very confident that we've done everything that we can. We always talk about that old cliche saying of leaving no stone unturned, and that is literally the approach we try to take. We just try to take care of everything so that we don't run into anything that we haven't seen before, or so that we can deal with everything no matter what the circumstances that pop up are. So that's the approach. And to that end, we just take care of as many things as we can on our end, and then we go in there and we don't roll the dice, but you know what I mean.
Israel, of course, is quite the showman. When the door closes on the cage, though, it is a very different story. But he's used to the hype. He's used to the cheering. He's dancing before he fights and things like that. This time it's no crowd. Again, the biggest fight of his career. How do you adjust to that environment when there's so much on the line for a fight like this, where he really does draw a lot from a cheering crowd and that environment?
Yeah, I mean, it is quite different, and we've been lucky enough to have a little bit of intel on this. So obviously we had Dan Hooker fight, and then we had Alex fight with no crowd, and we garnered a lot of information from those two events. Look, we've tried to simulate that environment back home. You know, I had them sparring in an empty gym with just the coaches in the gym, one sparring partner, and Israel or Shane or Brad or Kai. And I think the guys found that tremendously useful because it is a completely different feel, different environment to how we're usually sparring and fighting. And again, it's just taking care of as many things as we can so that we don't run into any problems along the way. And we just hope that we've gone some of the way onto doing that. My guess is Israel's going to be fine with it. Like he's and all these guys are like, these guys are just so professional. These guys are just so professional. They're just so good at what they do. They're so good at the sport. They're so good at the mental game of the sport. I don't think it'll have too much of an effect. And if it has, we've taken as many precautions as we can beforehand. But again, it's the unknown that makes you nervous. And so always the most interesting part of a fight for me is that first 30 seconds, because in that first 30 seconds, you can tell so much.
Without giving away the game plan, how does Izzy win this fight?
You know, really in a broad, if you want to make me a broad sort of prediction, I think Israel either wins a decision or he gets a stoppage late. Yeah, I think Israel gets more and more comfortable with what's coming at him, more comfortable with the speed and the movement. I think he slowly starts to ramp his computer up, so to speak, and get the computer firing, and he starts to pick Costa off. What's so cool about this is a real classic kind of like boxer versus puncher fight. You got this big, powerful guy. You've got another guy who's a little bit, probably less powerful, but a little bit more skillful, and you're playing those two things off against each other. I think that's what makes the fight so interesting, as well as all the other stuff, the personalities that clash and all the rest of it.
You spoke about picking Costa off. Is it, an advantage for Israel, considering his fitness and considering Costa's quite top heavy, to take him into those deeper rounds, as he's got much more experience fighting 5 rounds?
I mean, we definitely have some physical advantages that we have to use. We have to use those advantages. Like if we can't do that, it could be potentially a lot more difficult fight than we're anticipating. The experience is always valuable in this sport. In this sport, experience is one of the most underrated, parts of the sport that people don't really look towards. But your first championship fight, when you're fighting for that title, that's as deeper waters as you can possibly put yourself in. Israel's been there several times now, and Israel has had, like I said, over 100 fights, and a good majority of those fights against the best people in the world, kickboxing and MMA. That's just something that no one else in this division even comes close to. That's one big advantage that always gets overlooked by a lot of the experts and a lot of the people that talk about fights, is that experience. And I think that experience will come into play in this fight. Now,
in the bigger scope of things, when we think back to Halbergs and New Zealand MMA being on that stage in this country, when we think of sport now, it's a very different landscape because of the pandemic and things like that. But if you can explain to those who are still not yet converted, I don't know why, but what does this fight mean for New Zealand MMA and, this evolution that it's going through right now through your gym?
this is history in the making, to have 4 guys at this level all competing on the same card, to have one person fighting for the middleweight championship of the world against another undefeated prospect. It's like us versus the Wallabies or us versus South Africa in the Rugby World Cup final. A lot of New Zealand sport at the moment is on hold. We're fortunate that we're one of the only teams that are going to be in recent times representing the country. And I've used that to motivate these guys because my guys are very, and my gym and everybody on my team is very patriotic, proud New Zealanders. So, it's a historic event and it means a lot to us. And we hope that comes across to the New Zealand public.
A lot of people, when they're, see the journey, I mean, it's all over social media and YouTube and things like that, these clips of you and the team, and of course the likes of Mike Ango and Doug Viney. It's essentially 2 generations worth of New Zealand MMA in one gym. Explain a little bit more about that and the relationship that you have with those trainers and how they have really helped, get to, this point where you have these 4 fighters fighting on the biggest fight card in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That would give me a lot of pleasure because I feel like those guys, although they don't want to be in the limelight much, I feel like they deserve to be in the limelight. But yeah, I mean, we all grew up in the sport together. Mike Angov, Tristram, Doug Viney, these guys. I started fighting Thai boxing in 1999. All those guys were there, 5+ years before me. So we're definitely spanning the generations in our gym. But what it means for these 4 guys here is an invaluable, like a highly valuable resource. And a resource that not a lot of teams have. It's a resource that's built on years upon years and fight, literally, years and years of actual fighting. And what those guys are is what we call like lifers. Like those guys found the sport and they will never leave the sport to the day that, till the lights shut out. They will be in the sport to the day they die. And I'm lucky enough to be able to pull those. I was lucky enough to pull those resources together. And these guys, these 4 guys are lucky enough to reap the benefits of those resources.
Now, of course, you all work together. You've, from what I can remember, kind of opened this space together. But when, when you, like how you said, practically grew up with these guys through the fight community, it wasn't in CKB. It was, I think founded with Lee Guy right at the beginning. So talk a little bit about that and how it evolved to where it is now.
Yeah, so, I mean, we all started at Lola Muli's gym, which was called Balmoral Lee Guy, which is still in existence today. And we all had wonderful, great amateur and professional careers underneath our trainer, Lolo. Me and Doug got an opportunity to open City Kickboxing. And at that stage, we respectfully asked Lolo if it would be a good idea and if we could kind of take our own path, take our own journey. And then he gave us his blessing. And then we went and done that. As our gym developed, a lot of the students that we grew up with in that sport, they decided to come over and give me a hand with this fight team that was gradually growing. And, I'm not sure if it's by chance or by design. Maybe I designed it a little bit, maybe unwittingly, but I managed to get wonderful group of guys together, and we managed to pull our resources together, and the other important thing is we all get along with each other. We all put our egos aside when it comes time to train these guys. I think that's an important element that can't be forgotten. And yeah, and from that path, it's led us to where we are now. And that's, I mean, we owe everything to that gym that we started off and that trainer. Honestly, the great Lolo Hamwali, who brought us all together and gave us the foundation of how we frame, how we think of combat, how we think of the sport, how we think of strategy and technique and tactics. A lot of that comes from him and other influences, other coaches that some of the guys have had and I've had. So we're very thankful for those roots.
Now, when you look at the gym and where it is now, I mean, I can see, different fighters coming from different gyms coming to either exclusively train with you now or have become, like visiting partners in the gym. Do you think because of that lineage that, the New Zealand fight community just want to be a part of it, and especially soaring the way that you guys are right now?
Yeah, I mean, the lineage, like I said, had a big part to do with why we're successful, because it's such a good lineage to come from, such a knowledgeable lineage to come from. People have I think we've got some special coaches at the gym, and I think people understand that and they want to learn off them. I think first and foremost, they just want to learn about the sport and they want to learn off them. And we've got some coaches that are proven to be some of the world's best coaches, and they just want to learn off them. So they're all polling around my gym. Yeah, I mean, there are, the great thing about the gym is, for the most part, most of the guys that come understand that to get the most out of the gym, you've got to be a part of the gym. And that means someone that turns up 5-6 days a week for years. Because this sport, you have to invest time. Time is the biggest investment you'll make. And to get where people like Israel, Brad, Kai you've got to understand what you're seeing now is a decade's worth of work plus from those guys. I let everybody understand that there's no way around that. You have to put in the time. You have to work hard. You'll get the best results. You'll get the most out of these coaches and this gym if you commit to the long game. Yeah.
What is it about this environment? What is it about this, this world that, has your heart, so much? You have to have more than just the want, or the passion. You would 100% have to have the heart to be in a sport like this with the amount of people you deal with. What is it for you that, really motivates you to coach and help people be better?
I enjoy helping people achieve their end goal. I think that feeling is common amongst all of us. If we can be a big part of someone achieving their end goal, I think that feeling is priceless. For me, it's a similar feeling to being successful in a fight. And that's something I really strive for and really hope for. It puts a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself, put a lot of pressure to achieve that, but that's what I really enjoy. When someone like Brad, who's worked his entire life from a young man, Kai, who's worked his entire life from a young man, to be able to help those guys get to where they want to go and beyond sometimes, it's a feeling I can't describe. It's indescribable, but it's something that it's one of the main reasons I do it.
Well, thanks again for your time, Eugene, and all the very best at UFC 253. Now, of course, preparing for this fight card, you never would have guessed that something like this COVID-19 global pandemic would have happened, which is, it's thrown a somewhat of a spanner in the works, but you and the team have worked through it. How have you found the regulations? Has it impacted preparations in any way? And how are you dealing with all the testing?
The testing's easy, but I just make sure I check everything first. I try to anyway, just to make sure my container's sealed and whatnot. I'm just paranoid like that. But apart from that, nothing's really shaking me or anything. It's just, I kind of like the quiet. I mean, I'm in my hotel room. When we went outside, there's no, fans trying to get you to sign 20 different things so they can go sell them on and trade me on eBay. I mean, that's all part of the experience, but I'm kind of happy to not just to be left alone for a while and just get to fight. I kind of like that feeling, and I'm looking forward to fighting in an empty arena as well, and Fight Island with only a few people watching.
I wanted to talk to you about that, actually. I mean, it feels like when when it's fight week and fight night, you feed off that energy of the people and the cheering and the lights and the cameras. You seem to shine. So I did want to ask you about
and the booing.
And the booing. How do you adjust to that, and how have you prepared for that, that quiet environment?
Our last sparring before we flew on Monday, Eugene, had us spar in the gym empty to kind of get us used to it. But I don't think it's going to be, I don't know. I feel for myself, knowing me, it's not really going to make a difference. I feel like it'll feel more natural to me when it's just me and the other guy and a few people watch it rather than the whole crowd. Because whether they're cheering or booing for you, the crowd's still a factor you have to take into consideration. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to affect me in a negative way. I think I'll actually thrive with no one watching live. I
think Jim put on his Facebook page when it first started happening, where there were no crowds at the UFC, that it was kind of a sparring man's, dream, because it is just like being in the gym, and not everyone performs their best under that, intense crowd environment. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I think some people don't, but I can do both. I have good days in the gym, and I also have good fights under the lights. So I don't think it's going to affect me in a negative way where I feel like, oh, shit, there's no one watching me. Like, nah, I'll just show up and fight. That's what I do.
Then, of course, the other spanner is there's so much more travel involved this time around.
God.
You have to go to America first, then off to Abu Dhabi. So what's that like, in leaving home a lot earlier than you usually would?
My body's already responding like it's fight week. I checked my weight just before. My weight's dropped down quite a lot. So I have to remind my body that, hey, just slow down. We're not there yet. So, just, I don't know, even from Auckland to LAX, I teleported pretty much. It's a 10-hour-and-a-half flight. I dozed off after one episode of Westworld. Woke up, it was 6 hours left, and I dozed off again. Woke up to the pilot telling us we're going to land. So I felt like I just teleported, and yeah, I'm good at that.
Now, let's talk a little bit about UFC 253. We'll talk about your teammates being there with you as well. I mean, I spoke about, this being a very different preparation and things like that. It must be, really nice to have, 3 teammates there, as well as a large majority of your gym on this trip with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're a gang right now. Like, we're the people that, this is our show. Put it that way. This is our show. This 253. This is a CKB show. So we're rolling deep. We've got the gang with us. We've got some more coming. We've got Jeff. I think he's in quarantine here at the moment. That's my videographer. We've got Tim, one of my managers. I saw him about, we were talking to each other from the window. And yeah, we've got some more. Ash is already on his way to the UAE, I think, or to Vegas. I'm not sure. Like, we're mobilizing right now, and it's gonna be cool just to have everyone just rolling deep. It's going to be awesome.
And I mean, they're not there to just spectate either. I understand Carlos and Blood are there fight ready in case, that there's an opportunity for them to take the octagon as well. So talk about that preparation and how exciting it must be for them to be on standby like that.
Yeah, it's 100%. I mean, like, I just finished I had 2 trainings today. My last one, I had Carlos with me sparring, and he's a good look for Paulo Costa because he's even longer than them. He's got a better striking than Paulo Costa, and we're sparring in a makeshift, gym, one of the hotel rooms. So yeah, it's his time. And same with Diamond. Diamond's been around the world with me. Me and him have traveled so many places together, like many different countries. And, it's his time as well. Like Diamond, is his time to shine. And I can't wait till the world sees those guys under the lights. And yeah, they're staying ready. They're in shape. They're on weight. They're close to their weight class. And yeah, I just feel like it's I'm telling you, it's a CKB show.
How far do you think, in your own words, describe, how far your gym has come within the UFC, as well as the individual fighters?
Oh, I mean, like, as a whole, you look at, the story of CKB, City Kickboxing, is a small gym in the heart of Auckland City with 2 guys who started this off with I wouldn't really say with the dream. They started it off just to get some money, and then because they're such great fighters, people gravitated towards them, and because they're such great people stuck with them. And someone like myself, I stuck with them because, it's a great environment for me. And now look where we are, 10 years on and still going on. So yeah, from the little old gym in Auckland to taking over the world on the biggest stage in the middle of a pandemic. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be in this position. I'm grateful to be able to, still earn money. I'm able to be able to travel. I'm grateful to have these experiences, even though it's a little bit weird. Gratitude is my attitude. I'm always looking. I'm always making sure I stay in this mindset. Never, because sometimes you can get complacent and take it for granted, but I try not to. So I make sure I stay grateful always.
Now, talking about that platform, I know you've had discussions about with other people about the Black Lives Matter movement, and going to the United States right now. I can't imagine, how that would feel for you to actually be there in that environment during this time. Did you get any of the feels while you were there? What do you see, and what did it feel like when you got to that part of the world?
Right now, not really. Mostly in this part of the States, it's all COVIDed up. There's no riots or nothing, which is good. But yeah, I mean, something like, it's one thing I've always heard whenever like I talk about racism, or especially racism in the States, and speak out about it. People go, "Oh, don't bring that bullshit over to New Zealand. Don't bring that American politics to New Zealand." Guess what? I've been in America normally when it's, when it was the way it was, when without any COVID, and I've experienced that. Why? Like a racist doesn't just look at me and go, "Oh, nah, you're not from here. Nah, you're all right. I'm not gonna be prejudiced towards you." They just see me and, "Oh, it's black." You know what I mean? And they'll say whatever they want to say, or they'll act the way they want to act. It doesn't, like, blackness is worldwide. It doesn't really matter what part of the world you're from. If you're black, you feel. If you're human, you feel. If you feel what, the struggle that these people are going through, my people are going through. So yeah, being here right now, it's not really, it's not too much because the COVID buzz is taking over, but it is what it is, man. I'm just rolling, and I stay black. That's me.
So let's talk, more about fight night. It's just around the corner. The talking to and fro's been going long before this fight was even announced. It's, been highly anticipated for a little while. How do you see this fight? We'll start with, how do you see this fight panning out?
Honestly, it's going to be an early finish for me, or it's going to be a late finish for me, like 4th round. But I see myself taking him out early because he's going to be overconfident. I feel like he's going to be overconfident, thinking he can just walk through my shots. You know, same way a lot of other guys have. They think like, oh, I don't see no pop in his punches. He doesn't have any power. He's too skinny. And they're always surprised. The first few exchanges, they're always surprised. And the first time they get cracked by me, they're like, oh. And it's like an involuntary body response. Their body just goes into shock. Like, I wasn't expecting that. So I hope he comes with that attitude because, yeah, he's going to be in for a rude awakening before he goes to sleep.
I know that, you know, you are a very confident fighter, and you have to be in a sport like this, especially when you shut that door and it's just you two in the octagon. But I also think I know you well enough to know that there will be a sense of respect there as well. And, you know, so how have you prepared for, you know, this massive power that he keeps talking about that he's going to bring? How do you prepare for power that you've not yet faced?
I have faced power like that. That's the thing. Everyone talks about his power. It's like, I have not seen him one-shot someone in the UFC. Like, one-shot, drop dead someone in the UFC. You can look at my kickboxing fights. I've done that. You can look at my UFC fight. Example, UFC 243. One shot, boom. I sat Whitaker on his ass twice. I haven't seen him yet to do that. He does his flurries on the cage, and it's just the way he looks. He's got big muscles, so everyone thinks he's got power, but people forget the leverage, the fulcrum that these limbs bring. They don't understand. So people are still fooled by Hollywood. They still got the wool over their eyes. So, yeah, I'm not, like, I have seen power like that before. Everyone has power. You have power, Vinda. I wouldn't let you punch me in the face because you'd probably hurt me. You know, if I just put my hands behind my back and go punch me in the face. Everyone has power, but it's how do you know how to use that power? Do you know how to reach the person? Do you know how to time it very well? Those are the bits that count. So, yeah, I can't wait, man. He's in for a rude awakening before he goes to sleep.
How much of this comes down to, you know, like that fight IQ rather than just a bull in a china shop?
Exactly. It's fight IQ. It's the brains behind the brawn. I'm going to keep that. The brains behind the brawn. Not just all brawn and, you're going to knock him out, bro. This and that, blah, blah, blah. It's understanding the patterns that he has in his fights and where he's successful and where he sucks. And we've already exploited that in the gym. So we're going to exploit it come fight night.
You've prided yourself on your journey to this point. I think before you were the champion, one of the most active fighters in the UFC. You've fought a lot of those top flight fighters. And, you know, there's been mention that he has not. Do you think that he's ready for this fight?
He's not ready for this fight. That's the thing. He's being served. I think his hardest fight was Romero. And I think he fought Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall was touching him up, but Uriah Hall succumbed to his will. But there's a difference, big gap between me and Uriah Hall. You know, I just feel like a lot of these guys, it's easy to talk. It's easy to say all this shit when you're not in there with me. When you face all these other guys, all these B-grade fighters, and then you come face the A++. That's a different league. And then when you're in there, it's too late. Then you have to try and learn on the fly. But he's too dumb with his peanut brain to learn on the fly, so he's gonna struggle that whole night.
How attached have you become to being that champion? How comfortable are you in that spot now?
I've always been comfortable as the top dog. I wouldn't say I'm attached to being a champion, but even before the belt came, you can look at old interviews where I'm like, bro, the belt's just a fancy tiara. I'm already the champ. I see myself as a champ, as a top dog in this division. Before the belt came, like 4 fights before the belt came, I've been saying all this shit. Before that, I was saying that before I even got in the UFC, you know, and I did it. So now I'm like, cool. I'm where I'm supposed to be, but I don't get attached like some of these other guys who walk around carrying the belt everywhere. I don't get attached. There's a certain point in camp that I grabbed the belt. I didn't see the belt through the whole first COVID lockdown. Then after the COVID lockdown, I grabbed it off Eugene and I kept it in my house for a while. And then about 9 weeks out from the fight, I took it back to the gym and I was like, here, I just don't want to see it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want it in my house. You know, there's just marks on the wall where it used to stay, but I know I have to get it back. That's the mentality that I keep. I stay woke and I stay broke.
Why is it that you didn't want it in your house for too long?
I don't want to get attached to it because, like I said, a lot of people get comfortable. They get complacent. They think this is it. Like, it's easy to get to the top. But it's hard to get to the top, but it's harder to stay on top. And you've seen a lot of these guys who, they win the belt and then the next fight, they lose their belt. I'm not one of those guys because I've defended my belt twice now against Whitaker and against, what's his name, Romero. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to defend it for a third time this weekend. And I'm not one of these guys, man. Like, I don't want to be, thinking like I know I'm the shit. You don't have to tell me I'm the shit. But also I have to remind myself that I'm not shit. Like, I still have a long way to go. So that's why I do shit like that. I just take it out of my house because I don't want to feel too comfortable as all that.
In your reign as champion, you haven't been as active. You can't be as active as a champion. Has that been an adjustment for you, considering how active you were to start with and just really hungry to, mate, you could have fought 3 times in a week if you had your own way, but have you had to adjust to that?
A little bit, but the COVID thing kind of threw a big monkey wrench in the whole thing because I was going to fight again after March. I was going to fight again June, hopefully, or July, but then like this whole COVID thing kind of threw a whole spanner in the works. So yeah, it's just been, I wouldn't say it's a struggle, but I like fighting, man. Right now, while I'm still young, I'm in the stride of my prime. I want to keep fighting. So yeah, man, everyone keeps saying once this COVID thing blows over, who the knows what's going to blow over. But yeah, I want to stay active. So with this fight, after this fight, I'll look to get one maybe end of the year or early next year. Maybe. But we'll see. I got to talk to Eugene first, see what he wants to do, because it's not just me. I like to fight, but other people have to be considered because he's a family man with, pretty much 2 new kids. And also my other teammates like Andre being away from his kids and whatnot. And they'll do this for me because they love me and also, other reasons. But yeah, I have to consider their feelings as well.
It's nice of you. That has like a real whānau vibe about it.
I have to. I don't have kids yet, but I can imagine what it's like being away from your seed.
This is yet another historical event for New Zealand MMA. Pretty much every time you walk to the octagon or dance to the octagon, it's an historic moment. Do you, keep that in the back of your mind when you're preparing for things like this?
Not really. I don't think I keep it in the back of my mind. It's just there because I know. I just made a story actually about 30 minutes ago that one of the UFC pages put up of all, like, in about 15 seconds, all me walking out, like each of my fights. And I put his story favors the bold, like history. His story favors the bold. And I put my shit on the line every time. Like, I let my nuts hang. I let people know what I'm about because I've never want to shy away from expressing myself and letting people know what I really want to do. Because most people do. In our culture of, New Zealand, people they're not bold enough to say what they want to do. And that's why history will forget who they are, because they're not bold enough to speak their mind and speak their truth. Never being me. I speak my truth. I speak my mind. I let you know what I'm going to do. And I go out there and do it. And that's why history will remember me. But I don't think about it like a conscious thought. I just kind of like, it's just part of me. I just know, like, if you know, you know. That's what we say. If you know, you know. And I know very well.
And you're so fortunate to have been born in Nigeria and migrated to New Zealand and had these 2 amazing nations with you. What does this mean for your Nigerian family and for a country, that's in contrast to New Zealand, so different? It must have such a different audience.
Was it 80 million plus? I think last I checked, was it 80 million plus? Maybe even more. Hold up. I have to recheck that now, the census. But,
I fact check you.
It's a lot. So that's having that power behind me is always beautiful. I've got, superstars over there who, support me and they put me out there. I've got the people. I'm a man of the people. When I'm out there, people love me. They always show love and support me. They stay up till like 4 a.m. to watch me fight. And I want to be that guy. Like I've always said before I got in the UFC, that I want to be that guy when I fight, like the way Manny Pacquiao, when he fights, the whole Philippines shut down. when I fight, I want Nigeria to shut down. I want crime rates to drop. I want everything to stop, the whole nation to stop. So that way they're all watching in anticipation what's going to happen. And after I win, a whole parade celebration like the World Cup in 1995, I think.
How important is representation for you? Because for you, I don't know who you were looking to as your, role model, from Nigeria or anything like that. So how important is it for you to be that person for your nation, not only Nigeria, but New Zealand as well?
I wouldn't really say for the nation, because I've always looked at other people from different nations as representing me just because they're Black, As a kid, I looked at Jackie Chan. He represented me because he was cool and I wanted to do the shit he was doing in all his movies. So I felt represented by Jackie Chan. But also I know what you mean, because as a kid, when in a video game, it was always hard to see a Black character like in Mortal Kombat. So when I saw Jax, I'm that guy. Every Black kid wanted to be Jax because it's representation, and it is really important. But yeah, for me, even in New Zealand, like I have a lot of kids who are from Africa, like their parents migrate and then they birth them in New Zealand, and they kind of feel like sometimes they don't belong because their story is kind of similar to mine. Like, oh, where you from? I was born here. No, where you really from? It's like, I was born here. I was born in Napier. Like, some people, that's some people's stories. So they feel like I represent them. And I'm glad they feel that, because I know the struggle. I've been through what they've been through. I've been called all the names they've been called. I've been through the same situations as some of them have. So I'm glad I'm able to represent those people. And even those who aren't Black, like I felt like Jackie Chan represented me, and he ain't Black. Call me Blackie Chan, not jokes. If some people who feel like I represent them, even though they're not the same race as me, proud to you, and I love you. I appreciate you, and thank you for being inspired by my story.
Now, finally, most importantly, last summer I saw you at the beach. Did you buy the jet ski?
Oh, yo. Not yet, because the last summer being was, what happened? It was really busy, but it wasn't that good. I think that was cool. And shout out to the boss as well for loaning us those jet skis. That was awesome of him. But yeah, that's been on the list. 2 jet skis, because you can't be that guy having 1 jet ski. Or Scott, no mates. But yeah, that, and I've got some other plans, man. Like, New Zealand's got so many beautiful spots, bro. Like, so many beautiful spots that you can just go and camp out at. So I've got some other plans with what I want to do. I want to explore New Zealand properly. Yeah, even I've got a trip planned in mind. You probably know about this. I don't know.
Tell me more.
No. Like, there's a reason why I haven't really been.
I'm not saying
there's a reason. Who's listening? There's a reason why I haven't really been rolling around in Kurama like I used to. So I'm sure you know. Do you know about this?
I don't know. I think I do, but I don't want to.
No, that's all right. It's just the point system, the merits. Who cares? Shit happens. I didn't know about all that. But when I come back, I'm gonna do a big tour of New Zealand, from the North Island to the South Island, just to really see the country again from my own perspective. And I'm gonna take the whip, the beast, the 9-tailed beast, Kurama, and enjoy some of the open roads in the South Island. So I really want to, honestly, I did it right before the lockdown in a camper van and explored the north, the east coast of the north, and it was beautiful. And I was like, bro, New Zealand's so beautiful, man. Like, there's so many, you can do it twice over in your lifetime and still find new spots. You know what I mean? So I really want to explore New Zealand more and more and more. As much as the world's beautiful and you can't travel as much right now, there's restrictions. It made me realize, like, my own backyard's beautiful and I want to explore that. But in the same breath, I am grateful to be traveling. I'm grateful to be in the position I'm in. All blessed.
A couple of days out from the fight night, what do you do then? What do those days look like leading up to the fight?
Probably not as much media this time, thank goodness. I'm sure they'll still find ways to cram them in. But probably just chilling, watching Netflix on Neon, gaming, drinking lots of water, water loading, and just relaxing, because you can't really get too excited too quick. The excitement builds up slowly, but then you don't turn up the heat till fight night. That's when you really turn up the heat. So right now it's just slow cooking. That's all.
Well, Izzy, all the very best with those preparations, especially during these unprecedented times. Do you have a message perhaps for your fans back here at home?
Be nice. I keep saying this. It costs $0 to be nice. And if you're nice to someone, it feels good, because everyone always forgets it. Yeah. So don't be a all right.